Hello, everybody. This is Eleni, and welcome to my new series, Awakening and Now What? And so I'm going to share a story today, and I'm also going to be talking about some concepts, the concepts of betrayal, the concepts of coaches that are wolves in sheep clothing who look very credible, who have got all the credibility and the experience and the community, and yet they're still acting out of alignment and out of integrity. And so when you look at all of this through an awakened lens, how do you hold compassion and discernment at the same time? How do you make sure that you are aligned with being an extension of love, but also not to be someone that can just be walked over at the same time? Like, how do you hold all of that? How do you hold righteous anger? How do you hold hurt? How do you hold discernment? How do you hold boundaries? How do you hold judgment? How is all of that held in the human experience through an awakened lens when you know that you've made a soul contract with that person that you've brought into your field, when you know that the illusion that you've created and this dream state that you've created is actually your creation, and you've brought these people into your world, and you also feel hurt from their actions. And so I'm going to be discussing all of that today because it's a big one. Awakening is not just about going into some other realm. It's not just about love and light and understanding that all there is love. It's also, how do we play the human in this human experience? How do we actually ground ourselves in the human experience and honor the human experience? How do we do that? How do we honor the emotions that come up? How do we honor the anger, the hurt, as well as not hardening our hearts? So I'm just going to start at the very, very beginning and explain what actually happened to me. Oh, here we go. So let me start with a story. Okay, so it all started a little while back when my friend, who I adore, Karen Bird from the States, came to visit me. And we were sitting at one of the rooftop restaurants here in Melbourne, and we had the backdrop of the Melbourne CBD behind us. And she said to me, "That's who you need to be speaking to. That's who you need to be taking your breath work to." And when she said that, I had like goosebumps through my body. And that to me is a sign that what she's saying is truth, that there is something along that suggestion that is the right suggestion for me. Because goosebumps for me are a sign that there is something I need to notice here. There is something I need to pay attention to here. And so then I did a meditation on what she said on another day. And as I was meditating, a particular name dropped into my meditation. And this particular name was someone I knew through someone else. So this someone else is someone that I respected, and this particular person was their mentor. And it actually came to me that I should engage this person to help me take my breath work into the corporate arena. Oh, and so we had an initial chat, and I'm now just giving you context in terms of this person, this particular mentor. She's well established. She's not new in the game. She looks the part. She talks about spirituality and integrity. And yeah, so there was nothing that gave me the sense that, this person wouldn't be the right person for me. However, there were red flags later, which I will talk about because there's always red flags. And that's where discernment comes in, because why is it that we have a red flag and then we ignore that red flag? It's because our ego is actually wanting an outcome of some sort. And so we've ignored our own intuition, we've ignored the red flag. And so what happened was that she, she wanted, like, so number one red flag, I'm about to give you number one red flag, because I believe this is the old world, this is the old coaching world, which is no longer aligned to the path that I'm on. And the old coaching world has things like early payment in case you miss out, long containers, very expensive containers. And so I thought, well, this is my path. So I just need to get out of my lack mindset. Okay. And then I need to pay the funds. And so that's what also happens when you have an awakening lens. You also spiritually bypass your own intuition and make an excuse for everything. Like, well, why can't I pay that amount of money? Am I in lack? So you keep questioning every single thought that comes through your head. And so this particular mentor gave me the option of working with her for 7 months and paying up front or paying per month. Okay. Obviously, it was cheaper to pay up front. Now, it was a large sum of money. It was $30,500, money that I don't actually have just sitting in a bank account. It was money that I needed to borrow from my loan in order to give to her. Now, she requested this money in November. We weren't even going to start till February. And interestingly, my gut told me there's something wrong there, because I don't work like that anymore. This is like an old game, the old 3D game of pay now so you can get your service like how many months later in case you miss out, when she had even said to me that she's not taking any more private clients on. So I ignored my intuition. I ignored that red flag because I thought, well, I got goosebumps and this name dropped in my field during meditation. And why am I in lack mentality? And I asked myself the question, if I had all the money in the world, would I still do this? If I had all the money in the world, it's a question I commonly ask myself when I make decisions. If I had all the money in the world, would I still do this? And the answer was yes, that I felt like, it was the right thing to do, even though there were red flags. And so before we began the work, I made something very clear to her, which was that I can't do hustle anymore, that there's no part of me that can do hustle in terms of convincing anybody of anything. If there's any hustle in the way that she mentors, meaning if her guidance is about me hustling other people in order for them to come with me, whether that's corporates or whatever, I'm not up for it. Like, I'm just not up for that game anymore. With the way that I live my life these days, there's no hustle. There's like, it's effortless. It's whatever appears, whatever comes my way, comes my way. I don't need to convince anybody of anything. And she said, absolutely, there's no hustle. So we had an initial time together where she was able to ask questions. And again, she was very clear that there was no hustle. She even wrote a report that said no hustle. And the agreement was that we were going to have 14 mentoring sessions, so one every 2 weeks over 7 months. So by the second mentoring session, and by the way, the mentoring sessions were supposed to be, every second one was supposed to be 90 minutes, and every other one 30 minutes. Well, they were all booked for 30 minutes. Again, I let that go. Another red flag, right? No integrity in terms of saying what you're going to say, what you're going to do, and then actually keeping to what you promised you're going to do. And I let it go, which again is on me. And after the first and second mentoring session, I wrote big emails to her saying, it really feels heavy. This work feels heavy. I did it all. There was nothing I didn't do because I'm a very good student. I did it all, but it felt very, very, very heavy. And when she arrived at her fourth mentoring session, she started off by saying that I think we need to revisit this and I am prepared to release you from this container. And I felt an immediate sense of relief in my body. Like my body was just like, oh, yes, I need to be released from this container. Like I seriously cannot. It just felt light that I was released from the container. But because I thought I knew her and because I thought that I understood the kind of person she was, I was pretty sure that she was going to be fair with the amount of refund that she was going to give me because I felt close to this person. And I only received 3 out of 14 mentoring sessions. So out of the 30 and a half $1,000 that I had given her, I thought I was going to get 20,000 back. Well, she wrote me a letter, an email to say that she's only going to give me 10,000 back. I was absolutely like taken aback. It felt like the biggest betrayal because I thought that our relationship was closer than that. I thought that she would hold high integrity, and I was really shocked when she said that she was only going to give 10,000 back. However, after feeling into the initial anger and hurt, I decided that I was going to let it go. I wasn't going to hang on to this energy. I wanted the energy to leave my field because I felt sick every single day. Like this made me feel sick because I started to feel ashamed, and shame is the lowest vibration. And this is the other interesting thing about the awakening journey, which I write about in my new book, Effortless, which is coming out next year, early next year, or the end of this year. It's in its final edit. Is that with the awakening journey, it's not like, okay, I've awakened to this truth, and then I've awakened to this higher truth, and then I've awakened to this higher truth, and then it's linear. It doesn't work like that. We go back. So I call it that there are 5 gateways to awakening. And as we enter every single gateway, we don't necessarily anchor that gateway. So we don't necessarily stay in that gateway. So even though we think we're at a certain part of the journey, we're not necessarily at that part of the journey. We keep veering back. And so what happens is it's a bit circular. So what happens is you might end up being entering gateway 3 in terms of the awakening journey, but then suddenly you find yourself back in 1 all over again, because even though I have spent a number of years going very, very deep into the way that my mind works, into the way that the ego plays me, into what my soul really is, I still, I still, at this stage of the journey, only a few weeks ago, felt the very lowest vibration frequency of shame. And the shame was about, how can I, at this point of my journey, have brought in to my field someone who is completely overtaken by her own ego and her own greed. And at that point, I could see her ego and I can see my ego, because egos get hurt. The soul doesn't get hurt. The soul, you can't touch the soul. The soul isn't hurt by somebody not giving you their money back, your money back. But the ego is. The ego is hurt. The ego is cut. The ego is betrayed. The ego has all these stories about, like, this is money that I've been paying interest on since November last year. I haven't received what she promised me. And not only that, that 10 grand that she promised me, I haven't even seen that. So I had to consider whether I was going to take legal action just on the amount that she promised me. And that was a huge consideration for me, because taking legal action is such a 3D state, like taking legal action against someone. And so I had to think, this is so not the world that I want to live in, to take legal action. But before I did that, before I took the legal action, let me tell you why I took the legal action. But before I did that, I actually asked if we could meet And I wanted to get all the emotions that had been brewing inside me out of my system. And I had also wanted to pray for both of us. Like, I recognized that this was a soul contract between me and her. There were learnings that I needed to have. There was something I needed to take away from all of this. And I wanted to pray that the connection, the soul contract between us, gets severed because I didn't want her in my field anymore. Like, this was a vibration I just did not want in my field. So I did those prayers. I really did pray. And then I received a voice message to say that her business was diabolical. Look, I'm not interested in those kind of excuses. I have a business. I have been in situations in the past where I don't have any money in my business account for whatever reason, and yet I've got bills to pay. I will go and borrow from my home loan to pay those bills. There's no way that anybody is going to be sitting there waiting to be paid because of, the cash flow in my bank account. That to me is an integrity issue, and there is no way that I'm not going to be paying everybody who deserves payment. And so I didn't buy that excuse. And as a very one of my roles that I used to have when I was in corporate was a credit manager. So the moment she gave me that excuse about her business being diabolical, that's when I knew I needed to take legal action. And I was torn about taking legal action because I'm a student of the Course in Miracles. Course in Miracles is all about forgiveness. Course in Miracles is all about um, every situation that comes your way is an opportunity for forgiveness. So the way that I saw it was I can still forgive, I can still hold compassion, I can still give love, and I can also hold boundaries at the same time. And so what I did was I was really battling between these two worlds, the 3D world of legal action and anger, and the 5D world of love and forgiveness and compassion. And it's okay to acknowledge that you're still living in both of those worlds. It's okay to acknowledge that. And I also wanted to make it very clear to the universe that I'm not a pushover, that I'm not available for this type of treatment, and that I'm not just going to close my eyes in love and light and send her prayers and yet not stand up for what is rightly mine, which is s- a large portion of that to be refunded, and the principle of what is right. And what I find in this spiritual community, and I was one of these people, where I would excuse everything around me because it's like all playing out perfectly the way that it needs to. That is true. The thing is, whenever we have any kind of belief about anything, there's more than one truth and more than one falsehood. So that is true, that everything is playing the way it needs to. That is true, that this is actually a game, and that I am part of the illusion, and she's part of the illusion, and I've made her up in my mind. So there's no point holding anger towards her because I'm only actually holding it towards me. But what is also true is that I'm also a human being. And as a human with living in this um, staged experience, I actually have real feelings. I did have anger. I did have hurt. And when we try and bypass those emotions by pretending that they don't exist, like I did, like go all into that love and light space and pretend I don't have anger and pretend I don't have hurt, then what actually happens is you're not honoring yourself and you're suppressing those emotions. So those human emotions need to be felt, they need to be released for her soul. Pray that both me and her come back to love. Pray that we both arrive at a place that we are aligned with what's true and what isn't. And then I've had to go into this surrendered space where I brought in Yeshua, the light of God and the Holy Spirit. And surrendered the whole situation to them. At the end of the day, it's karma is a thing, and karma is not about judgment. It's not about I do something wrong and therefore something bad happens to me. It's the energy that we carry in our bodies. So if there's a misaligned decision that we make which goes against truth, against love, against God, against what is the right thing to do, and we can excuse it any way we like, we are going to be carrying that energy in our body. I completed a shamanic leadership course recently, and this dense energy is called hucha. And what the Andean lineage actually say about hucha is that if you're not actually intentionally and consciously creating Sami light, you are unconsciously allowing in this hucha energy. And so we both have a choice in that moment. There's two souls playing this game. I feel like I have been betrayed. I felt like I was lied to. I felt like I was treated very badly. And that is true. And the other truth is, I also didn't have the discernment that I needed to have. I also didn't exercise the judgment I needed to exercise. I also didn't listen to my intuition and those red flags at the same time. So all of those truths happen at exactly the same time. And so, what do you do with all that? Because it's such a soup of energy. It's such a um, there's so many lessons coming in at the same time. And one of the lessons that I learned is that when something happens to you and you feel a negative emotion in relation to that event, don't deny your anger and try and be all love and light. Don't deny your hurt and try and be love and light because you know there's a higher perspective. You know it's a soul contract. You know you brought her into your field. You know this is an illusion. You know this is a game. There are still rules within the game. Okay. So, my first learning is don't deny your emotions, allow them to come in, allow them to be expressed. The second learning that I had was that shame, the moment that you recognize that you are holding shame, know that it is the lowest possible frequency that you can hold because you are condemning yourself for basically having a human experience. And this is why we're here on at Earth School, is to have the human experience. And so asking yourself the question, what was lacking in me, and therefore having the associated shame with that, it's a good question. Ask the question, what was lacking in me to bring her into this field? And then allow the shame to go. But when I answered that question, which was what was lacking in me, the answer was I believed that someone outside of me was able to show me the way. And that is just simply not true. It's simply not true. Secondly, I learned that I am not in the least bit interested or going to ever partake in a long mentorship or coaching program with anyone ever again because that is a 3D world. And I made that decision many, many, many years ago, and here I am again, which is why I talk about the gateways of awakening, that it's a circular motion. Like you reach another level of awakening and then you go backwards. You don't just keep moving forward in this awakened state. You need to keep learning the lessons of whatever shadow is still left in your body. And the other lesson that I learned very quickly was that this particular association that this lady was a part of, I was going to resign from because this particular association I've been a member of for over a decade. And it's very big on hierarchies. And I had reached a certain level in this association because of my speaking career. And I decided that It's not for me. This association that has all these hierarchies and everybody is better if they're at a different level is no longer for me. I'm not interested in that game anymore. Like, it's such a wank game. Like, to be in this association with all these levels of credibility, and you're a better speaker because you earn this amount of money. Like, for me, it's just sickening. Like, it's very, very ego based, and I'm no longer interested. And so what I did was I withdrew from the convention that I was going to go to in the following year. So it's almost like this lesson, this very, very, very expensive lesson came to me, because if it wasn't expensive, I wouldn't have paid this much attention, to show me that everything that belongs in the old world, Eleni, needs to be burnt down. Everything, every single thing, every single hierarchy, every single association, every single 3D coach, even when they appear to be all spiritual, needs to be burnt down. And I believe that my experience is not an unusual one in these days and during this time. I believe that we are going to see a lot of wolves in sheep clothing. The coaches that come out as all spiritual and high integrity and high credibility in big communities, that are really just wearing this outfit, and they've been overcome by greed. And they will do the wrong thing, and they will act out of integrity. And they're all going to be coming out. These are the times where we're going to see things so clearly, because it's not about what words, it's not about the titles, it's not about the labels, it's about the frequency and the transmission that we can feel when that person's speaking. Can we feel that that person is speaking truth? And that's what I was ashamed about, because I can. I absolutely can. And then I ignored everything I felt. And part of that was wanting to be validated by this person, wanting to be liked by this person. That part of me, that child part of me, that inner child that wanted to be in this world and receive one last validation before I get so hurt that I go, fuck this. I am not interested in this world. That is not me. And I don't want anything to do with this world. So I was thinking twice about making this particular video and calling her out. I'm not calling her out, obviously, because I'm not saying her name, and I never will. So, because I don't believe in name and shame. I don't believe in that. But I felt like I needed to, because this awakening series, Awakening Now What, needs to be about my real life experience in real time, not after 2 years, after I'm no longer feeling any of it and it's all calmed down and it doesn't matter anymore, but right now, because it matters. Right now, what am I feeling? Right now, what are the different choices I've had to make? Right now, what are the different options? And forgiving myself for buying into the illusion. Because, like I said, I am a student of A Course in Miracles, and I always will be. And it's all about forgiveness. And it's all about nothing real can ever be lost. I know that that money can never be lost because it's not real, it's just energy. But at the same time, I'm playing this human game, and I'm not going to allow myself to be ripped off. So both of those are true. And so it's really important that we don't just play on one side of the arena, that we acknowledge both. It's okay if I really didn't care, because I really absolutely was completely embodied in the 5D world, but pretending I don't care is a completely different story. And so we do need to express our emotions. We do need to call people out. we do need to allow the normal, natural human emotions of anger and sadness and hurt and shame to be felt. But we do still see that that is part of the illusion and that is part of the game. So we can still feel it and still know it at the same time. We can still pray for their soul salvation and ours at the same time. We can still forgive ourselves for allowing this situation to play out in our life at this time of the journey. We can still see that, well, thank God it was brought up so that it can be seen, so it can be burnt away, because we are entering a new era of burning it all up, burning every single thing that is no longer true. And for me, what is no longer true is the old way of doing things. Entering a mentorship that wants you to pay money so much in advance, entering a mentorship that asks for large sums of money for a long period of time is not the world that I want to operate in. The world that I want to operate in is honesty, integrity, alignment, trust, and that if there is something that I need assistance or support with, that person can support me in that moment, and I will pay them for their services in that moment. But I'm not going to give in the next 6 months to work underneath them because they know better. So it is about allowing ourselves to receive the assistance, the support, the guidance, trusting our intuition to make sure that when we do see a red flag and when something feels off, just remember this, because this is something I've needed to remind myself of. If one thing feels off, the way that people do one thing is the way they do everything. I'm going to say that again because that's really important. The way that people do one thing is the way they do everything. If you feel like it's off in terms of the way they're running their coaching, mentoring program, you're probably going to realize that the way they do everything is off. And appearances don't mean anything, no matter how well dressed they are, no matter how big their community is, no matter how many followers they have, no matter how much money they appear to be making. That doesn't mean that they're in the highest integrity. It does not mean that they are aligned with your frequency. And at the same time, full responsibility for not holding the discernment that you needed to hold by bringing them into your field. So all of that, all of it together, rather than just one or the other. So it's not all love and light, and it's not all hurt and judgment. It's all together. And you're going backwards and forwards between the two worlds all the time. And this is what awakening is all about. It's about knowing the truth of love, and that this is an illusion and this is a game, and that the only truth is love, knowing that truth, and also honoring the real feelings and emotions that we feel along the way. So if somebody needs to see this video, please share it. I would love for you to actually subscribe and press the notification button so that you can be notified next time I go live, because these are the experiences that I'm going to be coming live with every single week. So what is actually happening in the real world, and how am I navigating it through an awakened lens? So not through an enlightened lens, through an awakened lens, because many of us are on this journey. I'm not alone. And it's not black and white. Nothing is black and white. There's more than one truth. There's more than one falsehood that we're hanging on to. There's more than one story. And so, yeah, please share your comments and let me know what you think. I would love to respond to any questions, queries, anything at all. Sending you so much love. Hey.